All right. I got pretty hyped up from making my video yesterday, so I've just decided to go ahead and make another where I'm going to kind of break down all the different things that are going to be added and give you my first pass at what I think about them. So we're going to start with the Huntress class. Obviously, this looked very cool. I'm sure that I'll give this a try eventually. I'm not really sure that I'm going to be playing it as my first character unless something comes out in the patch notes that just really draws my eye. But I do want to take a look at the ascendancies. So the first one that we have here is the Ritualist. So looking at the different skills here, it looks like starting from the right-hand side, we get some increased physical damage on our way to Blood Boil. I believe that the Blood Boil skill is basically like AoE damage around you. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I can't remember if it was like explosions on death or if it's like a stacking debuff or something like that, but regardless, it does look like a AoE damage thing around you. So that's kind of cool. Then we have the sacrifice stuff, and I think this is the thing that gives you the monster modifiers. It's really hard to tell right now whether or not this is going to be awesome or kind of meh. It's probably going to be awesome because they probably don't want to release something that's just going to be terrible. So my guess is that the balance is probably closer to the broken overpowered side than it is to the terrible side. But, you know, I heard them in the interviews talking about how they had to sort of custom balance each of these different monster modifiers. So it's really hard to tell right now without any additional information just how good this is going to be. Moving on, we have an additional charm slot with more charm charges gained. That's interesting, especially with them adding some unique charms to the game. This might be something that people do. And it says here, can instead consume 25% of maximum mana to trigger charms with insufficient charges. That's kind of interesting. I mean, you know, you get +1 charm slot, you get +2 from your belt. You're looking at 4 charm slots. I mean, that you could potentially have up often. I still don't really know exactly how good that would be. Maybe there's some synergy with some of the unique items that are coming out. But right now I don't really know what you would do with this outside of just being like elemental immune, like ailment immune, I guess. I don't know. All right, then we have this life regeneration thing. You can't see it because my cam is covering it, but I'll slide that over just a second. The Wildwood Persistence, 5% increased life recovery rate per 5% missing life. I mean, that seems okay. Doesn't seem groundbreaking or anything, but seems interesting. And then we have this little interesting bit here. Looks like you have to choose some sort of negative downside, either minus all res, reduced spirit, or reduced mana, and you get an additional ring slot. I have to think this is going to be pretty good. Not sure about that, but having a whole additional ring, that sounds like a lot of stats, and especially when you couple that with this Mystic Attunement, 25% increased bonuses gained from rings and amulets, that could be pretty good. Obviously, if you've got like triple rings with a probably best rolled ingenuity, I could see this potentially being very good. Even with them obviously nerfing ingenuity, not only because it was busted OP, but also because of the Ritualist coming in. They had to do something about that item. So it's probably going to look, the numbers on ingenuity are probably going to be a lot lower, but yeah, this should still be pretty good and pretty interesting. On to the Amazon. Okay, let's see here. Where are we starting? Let's start over here on the bottom left-hand side here. I'll leave my camera up here while we look at this one. Or bottom right-hand side, I should say. Okay, so we've got evasion rating to Stalking Panther, evasion rating from helmet, gloves, and boots is doubled. Evasion rating from body armor is halved. Okay, interesting. So maybe you don't wear an evasion body. Maybe you wear like some sort of unique that's like armor or ES base and get all of your evasion rating from your other item slots, potentially. Over here on the right side, we've got Asmiri Brew. Okay, so your flask just apply to both your life and your mana. It's interesting. And then Mystic Harvest. Life Leech recovers based on your elemental damage as well as physical damage. Okay, that is some good recovery there. That's interesting. Okay. All right, so I could definitely see some people going for that if you're doing some sort of this elemental spear skills. That's interesting. Okay, now on to this part of the tree. We've got Elemental Infusion. Grants skill infuse weapon. Not exactly sure what that is, but there's some stuff here like consuming power charges, endurance charges, frenzy charges to gain these infusions. I'm not exactly sure what these are, but looks interesting. Looks like they're encouraging some, elemental gameplay. 50% chance for infusion to not be consumed when infusing a projectile. Okay, so more on that train. So that looks like a different sort of tree than what we have in the middle here. Predatory Instinct. Reveal weaknesses against rare and unique enemies. 50% more damage against enemies with an open weakness. Wow. That is just straight up 50% more damage. That is a lot of damage from one node. Holy crap. Okay. That seems almost mandatory. And then over here we've got In for the Kill. That's the second node past that. 20% increased movement speed while an enemy with an open weakness is in your presence. 40% increased skill speed while an enemy is with an open weakness is in your presence. My goodness. Okay, so taking these two, it just seems like a no-brainer if you're playing an Amazon. I mean, you get crazy good clear speed and skill speed, coupled with the Predatory Instinct, just 50% more damage against rares and uniques. I mean, my God, that looks really good. That looks really good. So let's see what else you might couple that with. Down here at the bottom, Critical Strike, chance to hit with attacks can exceed 100%. Gain additional crit hit chance equal to 25% of excess chance to hit with attacks. Okay, so yeah, crit. And then over here, attacks using your weapons have added physical damage equal to 25% of the accuracy rating on the weapon. Okay, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. I think taking these 4 passives down here at the bottom, the reveal weakness stuff and the crit stuff with the added fizz, that could be nasty amounts of damage. I mean, those things, this all sounds really good. I mean, damage, 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 damage. We're talking 4 straight up damage buffs. That could potentially be very powerful. Alternatively, I suppose you could go for this infusion route, maybe this leech with elemental damage, and then I honestly don't really know. Maybe the Predatory Instinct coupled with that. I'm not sure. This looks really strong, potentially. I mean, I'm not an expert at this kind of stuff, but these bottom 4 nodes look really good. Okay, let's continue. Let me move my camera back down here. Let's look at... Oh, we can see what these are. Oh, okay, so really quickly, Blood Boil. Enemies in your presence accumulate blood boils periodically. When they die, the boils pop, applying corrupted blood to enemies near them. Okay, so it's a little bit of both. So it's stacking debuff on enemies, and then when they die, they pop and bleed the enemies near them. So let's see. Corrupted Blood deals 2% of slain enemies' maximum life as physical damage per second. Blood Boil applies to non-unique enemies in your presence every 1.52 seconds. Non-unique. Okay, so this is like clear speed. 20% more corrupted blood infliction area of effect per blood boil on slain enemies. So the longer they're alive, the more stacks of Corrupted Blood they have on them, or sorry, the more stacks of Blood Boil they have on them, the larger the AoE of the explosion is going to be. Inflicts a stack of Corrupted Blood on targets within 1.5 meters per Blood Boil on slain enemy. Okay, yeah. And then Corrupted Blood lasts for 5 seconds. Okay, well this is obviously going to be really good for clear speed. That's from Ritualist. The As the Whispers Ask, the Ritual Sacrifice. This was also... Oh yeah, this is the thing where you sacrifice a corpse of a rare monster to get its modifiers. So you get some of the modifiers for, it looks like, 20-ish seconds. Okay, pretty good. And then the Elemental Infusion, this was from the Amazon, grants your weapon infusion. Projectile attacks with that weapon consume infusions to infuse the first projectile fired, causing it to explode at the end of its flight. Converts 100% to cold. Okay, so you get these cold fire or lightning infusions, and I believe that was based on what kind of charge you trigger. Yeah. Okay. Probably some interesting stuff going on there. All right, let's move on to some of the other ascendancies. The Witch looks particularly interesting. Okay, so let's start over here on the... I'm just going to move this instead of my camera. Okay, there we go. All right, let's start over here on the right-hand side. We have Eternal Life. So, oh, actually, that's the second node, so hold on a second. Let's see. All right, so max life, and then you get Soulless Form. All right, 10% of damage taken bypasses Energy Shield. Okay. No inherent mana regeneration. Regenerate mana equal to 6% of max life per second. Okay. And then your life cannot change while you have Energy Shield. So as long as you have Energy Shield, you can't take damage to your life. And so this is just 10% reduced damage once you have both, right? 10% of damage taken bypasses Energy Shield, but your life can't change while you have ES. Okay, interesting. Then we have Price of Power. Non-channeling spells consume power charges to deal 25% more damage. Okay, interesting. Maybe there's some power charge stuff over here. I don't know. Then we have Energy Shield. Okay, non-channeling spells cost an additional 3% of max ES. They deal 30% more damage, and spending Energy Shield does not interrupt recharge. Ah, so taking damage would still interrupt your recharge, but not spending from this Eldritch Empowerment. Okay. Interesting. I'm seeing some synergy potential here. Then on the next little chain, we have Rupture the Soul. Okay, so this is like almost like it's just more clear speed. Cursed enemies you kill have a 33% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their max life as chaos damage. That's a lot of damage. Those explosions could potentially be pretty powerful. And then following down that train, we have Blackened Heart, 4% increased magnitude of Unholy Might buffs. You grant per 100 maximum mana. Unholy Might grants you 30% of all damage as extra chaos. Okay. Interesting. I'm not really sure what to think of that just yet. All right, let's go look at the next chain. You and your allies in your presence have Unholy Might while you are not on low mana. Lose 5% of mana per second. Oh, goodness. Okay. And then you can apply an additional curse, so your curses can affect hexproof enemies. Okay. And then the last thing, this Crystalline Phylactery. You can socket one non-unique basic jewel, 100% increased effect of socketed jewels. Does that just mean everywhere? Okay. And then 50% more mana cost if you have no Energy Shield. Okay, yeah. So, okay, definitely some interesting stuff going on here with, Energy Shield, obviously. And then mana, curses, Unholy Might. I'm not really sure what to think of all this, but looks like it could potentially be pretty good. Definitely interesting. Okay. I'm not going to go over the Smith of Katava and the Tactician, mainly because I have no idea about these classes. I never really played Warrior, and I barely played Mercenary to begin with. So I'm not going to make you suffer through that. Okay? I'm going to jump down here to the next set of mechanics and just go over these quickly. So there's going to have to be these wisps. These are basically just, I guess, torment ghosts, except they're Asmerian creatures instead. So they're going to run away from you, they're going to pass through enemies, and then when you finally kill them, when they inhabit something, they're going to drop the loot. So it seems like a buddy of mine, when I described this to him, he was just like, oh, that's just torment. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Still, it'll be nice to have some additional stuff going on in the zones, including the campaign, so that's kind of cool. Then we have talismans. So when you defeat the empowered monsters, you're going to potentially get some of these talismans. These go into rune sockets on weapons or armor. So this is interesting. The cat talisman hits against you have 10% reduced critical damage bonus. All right, nice. Boar talisman, gain 1 rage on melee hit. By the way, this only goes into boots. This only goes into gloves. This only goes into body armors. I can see this rabbit talisman being useful. Corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. These are interesting. These are going to be taking the place of a rune, and they have to go into a specific spot. But obviously, if you're like in need of these particular things, then that'll be useful. So, pretty cool, pretty powerful. Different maps that they've added. It looks like we have a couple of these different sort of thematic maps that will show up in a couple of the biomes. This one, I forget what they called it. It's like a mirror lake or something. It's only going to spawn in the water biomes, and it looks like it has these fragmented mirrors on it, which are going to give you these new base types. So these, amulets or rings or whatever have, changes to the amounts of prefixes and suffixes they can have. There's a little bit of interest there. Tower and tablet improvements. Yeah, there's going to be 1/3 as many towers as before. That's obviously really good because running towers was extremely boring. Towers can have bosses now, which that's a little bit more rewarding. When you take a tower, you're going to be able to socket multiple tablets in there. So instead of having to do all these different towers and then put one tablet in each one, you're just going to be piling multiple tablets into the same tower. I think that's going to be really nice quality of life, and it's going to make that the whole mapping and getting your map set up, that whole process is going to take a lot less time, I think, and be less of a hassle. So that's pretty cool. Starting to get into some of the things that I talked about in my last video, but we'll go over it again quickly. You're going to have portals, so that's good. And I think I read on the Path of Exile website, they made a clarification. These are for deaths. So, like, this is how many times you can die and still go back into the map. You are going to be able to go in and out, in and out, in and out as many times as you want to take loot in and out. And it's not going to be consuming these portals. So these portals are really like resurrects. How many times can I resurrect and go back in? It's less, oh, I'm using a portal every time I go through the portal. So, yeah, they may want to work on the semantics around all of this so that it's less confusing. But, yeah. All right, this is my favorite change of maybe all time. Not a huge change, but it's just probably my favorite thing. You're no longer going to lose XP or gain XP while doing pinnacle content. It means that when you're level 95 and a half and you get your Arbiter tokens, you can just go do it. You don't have to worry about, oh, I might die, I might lose the tablet. Well, that's still a possibility depending on the difficulty. But, oh, I don't want to go in there and then lose XP if I die. That's no longer going to be a problem, which I think is extremely awesome, and it's really going to encourage a lot of people, including myself, to do a lot more boss pinnacle content, which I'm excited about. We don't really know what the Atlas passive tree revamp looks like, but we're going to have 40 points instead of 30, and there's a lot more nodes and options, so that's exciting. All right, I do want to talk a little bit about this. So this is the new cleansed corruption or corruption cleansed system that's going to be going on in the Atlas. I think this has the potential to be extremely interesting. So this is the nexus of this corrupted area. You can see it's got this more intense red color and sort of highlight to the corrupted mod. Apparently, what happens is you can track in to this nexus, complete this map, and that will cleanse the corruption in all of the other places that were corrupted around this nexus. I don't think we know everything about this, but the corrupted monsters or the corrupted areas, I think it's kind of like beyond. So like you're going to be getting, you know, additional monsters spawning with the corruption in the map. The reason that you may not want to run them corrupted, though, obviously there's a benefit there. You get +1 to the zone level, and you get those additional monsters. You might not want to do that, though, because if you rush into the Nexus and you cleanse this area, what I heard from the developers in one of the interviews was that the cleansed monsters are only going to drop currency and maps. They're not going to drop items like armor and weapons. It's only going to be the other things that they can drop. And I presume the amount of things they're going to be dropping will still be the same. So that's a presumption of mine, might not be right. But let's say you rush into the Nexus, so you get to the Nexus as quickly as possible. Maybe like you start here, here, and here. So you only do 2 of the corrupted zones, actually 1 before you get to the Nexus. That's going to leave you with all of these corrupted areas that turn into cleansed. With the tower, you're going to want to run something that like juices pack size. And then for all of your waystones, you're going to want to be running pack size. And then assuming that the Atlas passive tree has explicit modifier effect, maybe pack size as well. I'm imagining just juicing the pack size up as much as possible and then running these cleansed maps, killing cleansed monsters for just pure currency drops. That's an idea. I don't know how effective that's actually going to be, but it's definitely something that I'm going to try, or I'm going to be on the lookout for other people to have tried it to see if it's any good. Definitely something interesting that we'll get to play around with. Okay, and then also you're going to be able to get these fracturing orbs from the cleansed enemies. These I think are going to end up being probably pretty common, but it's another way of approaching some crafting. You know, obviously if you get a +3 level to skills amulet, you're going to be able to play around with some chaos orbs and really go to town on trying to get that thing turned into a really good item. So I do agree with a lot of the other content create. Not that I'm a content creator. I agree with a lot of the big content creators wishing there was more that you could do with this, because once this gets fractured and this is a rare item, the only thing you can do to this amulet is Chaos Orbit and then Exalt it. I guess there's some things that you can do with omens, and perhaps those will be more common now, but it feels like there aren't enough tools to use with the fracturing orbs. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I'm a little worried that it's going to turn into, oh, fractured orbs are basically only for super, super high end game crafters that have loads and loads of currency, and that's how they're priced. So I'm worried that it's going to turn into, oh, I'm a sort of average player. It's economically disadvantaged. It's an economic disadvantage for me to use a fracturing orb rather than just sell it and use that currency to buy gear. I'm a little bit worried about that because there aren't enough tools really to interact with the fractured items once you make them, but we're going to have to wait and see. Okay, obviously a bunch of new uniques, some revamps to runes. They're adding rogue exiles, strong boxes, more essence things. Recombination, I didn't really play very much of PoE 1 when Recombination was in the game. I really only tried it out like one time. And obviously it's a pretty powerful mechanic. So I'm interested to see how this works. I think this is going to potentially be really good in the campaign. And probably early mapping to make some early upgrades. And then obviously there's some really powerful potential in late game as well. So yeah, I think this is cool. I'm interested to learn more about it and to explore exactly how it works. But you know, any sort of additional ways that we can utilize items on the ground, that's going to be a really big thing with recombinators, right? You need the bases. I think that's a good thing. And then I don't really know what this is. Reliquary keys, I thought these were like keys that take you to a place that has like a foil item or something. I honestly don't even know. And I'm even more confused because it says it's from a supporter pack. So I honestly don't even really know what this is. So if you know anything about the Twilight Reliquary keys, let me know in the comments because I am clueless. All right, well, that pretty much goes through everything, minus a couple of the ascendancies that I don't know much about. I'm really excited for everything, and gosh, I can't believe that we're less than 3 days away. I could not be more excited. Patch notes when. On that note, I'll see you guys in the next video.